Hey friends, welcome back to the Morning Mindset. Kerry Green here. I hope you're doing well today. I hope you're ready as we join together around God's Word to get your mind aligned with the truth of God. I know that saying can sound very trite when I say it over and over and over every episode, but friends, that is our goal on this podcast, and it's the most important thing we can do at the beginning of the day. We want to think like God thinks, so we're able to live as He would have us live in this world in which He's placed us. Well, let's get started. Today, we're looking at Proverbs chapter 23, verses 13 and 14, and this is a parenting passage. But we're going to learn a lesson that goes beyond parenting, that has to do with literature, it has to do with understanding the intended meaning of the author, and it has to do with having a sober and rational perspective about the things we glean from the items we read, the things we see on the news, all that kind of stuff. We're going to get there in just a moment. I want to remind you before we get into it about our nonprofit, Not a Needy Person. This is a benevolent platform that's been built to enable believers like you to help believers like you with needs that they have. There's both an option to submit a need and an option to give towards specific needs that have been thoroughly vetted and checked out. You can find out more by going to notaneedyperson.org. All right, Proverbs 23, 13 through 14 says this: do not withhold correction from a child. Okay, stop for a moment. Let's get that sentence in our minds. That sentence is the main point. Do not withhold correction from a child. Okay, so we as parents are not to be too lenient with our children. If our children need correction, we are to correct them. Why? Because that's a loving thing to do. And it's the responsibility of parents to guide their children in the proper way for living in the world in which they live. So correction is a part of that because children don't know things. They make mistakes. They step in the wrong direction. They put themselves at risk. They put others in jeopardy at times. We are not to withhold the correction that can help them live as wise individuals in this world. Now, continuing, this is where Solomon begins to speak about a practice that existed in his day. He's using words from his day and from his culture, and he's trying to make a point for the ages, not just for his day. He says, "For if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell." Now, I know in our day and age, you hear words like beat, and you hear words like rod, and you just get all up in arms in your emotions anyway, saying, wait a minute, they're telling me to beat my child. They're telling me to use a rod on my child. What? And friends, the problem is we are reading very sensible, very understandable words from Solomon's day through a modern lens that has placed different interpretations and definitions on the words that he's using than he intended. You see, when we hear beat him with a rod, we think of a great big long stick or a very hard thing that someone's just wailing away on this kid that's being described. That is not what Solomon had in mind. In his culture, a rod was something like a reed or a flexible little piece of bamboo, perhaps, that was thin and would be used like a switch in the old days. So it's a measured, wise, careful spanking is what he's talking about. And what Solomon points out to us here is if you apply this kind of correction, he will not die. And what Solomon's doing is he's addressing the overblown objections that get brought up about instruction like this. He's saying the fear is you're going to do irreparable harm to this kid. He's saying if you do what I'm telling you with common sense wisdom, that is not going to happen. In fact, the opposite is going to happen. You are going to deliver his soul from hell. Because that correction, done wisely and in the right way, is going to instill wisdom in that child. They're going to see there are consequences for their actions, and they are better off learning not to do those kinds of things that they're being corrected for. Lord Jesus, help us to be wise people, not giving in to the overblown objections that are made about verses in the Bible like this. Lord, enable us to take words as they're intended and to be wiser for doing so. Lord, guide us as parents in instructing our children. Guide us in knowing how to correct them, how to discipline in a way that will bring about the wisdom Solomon has in mind here, and enable us to be your people in doing so.